The human soul has a minimum daily requirement of entertainment, but listening to a podcast like you're doing right now, yeah, that doesn't count. Welcome to the world of MGM Rewards, where we have the greatest live shows on earth, the biggest names in sports, the best chefs on the planet, and the most unforgettable nights of your life. This is way beyond watching 20-second clips on your phone. This is all the entertainment you can handle and more. So join MGM Rewards now and visit MGMResorts.com to book your next Vegas getaway. Welcome to the show.
Life insurance. What's your excuse for putting it off? Can't afford it? Too much hassle? Think your work coverage is enough? There's a lot of excuses for putting off life insurance, but one big reason why you shouldn't. If the unexpected were to happen to you, who would pay the mortgage, the kids' tuition, and all the other bills? In a time of grief, the last thing you would want is for your family to have to sell the house and struggle to survive financially. At Ethos, we could get you covered in just 10 minutes and boom, family protected. Rates can increase the longer you wait, so no more excuses. Take 10 minutes today and discover the modern way to get the life insurance coverage you need. Ethos, fast and easy online term life insurance. Up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam. Some policies as low as $1 a day. Answer a few health questions and get your free quote at ethoslife.com/audio. That's ethoslife.com/audio.
Steering wheel. Lots of steering wheel here. Steering wheel. Hey, steering wheel. Somebody tell him to give it to him. Come on. Whoa.
Your leg, my please. Your leg.
How the f*** is that supposed to be?
I'm driving like a grandma. Get that, Ralph? Did you hear me? No more radio. Ralph, acknowledge. Now, come on, close him down and kill him. We've got a lunatic on the track down the Hanger State.
I am so annoyed.
Hey everybody, Paul Charsley, the Parc Fermé, and as you know, I have another job on the side working with the Heart of Racing team, and we're at Daytona right now, getting ready for the 24. It's actually the morning of the Daytona 24 hour, and one of the drivers that came onto the team last year was one Darren Turner, and so Darren has kindly set out some time, so we're going to have a little chat to Darren, not just about racing with the team, but his long and storied career. So welcome, Darren.
Thanks, mate. Thanks. Good to be here.
Yeah. We had some good times last year, had some good results, and we're back again to get the biggest result of the year. But we were talking yesterday just about how you began in racing. You know, you've been at it a long time, and you're still going at a very high level. So one of the questions I want to ask you was, how do you keep going at that level for so many years?
Oh, it's difficult. I mean, I didn't sort of plan to be a race driver. I mean, it sort of just happened over a period of time, and it all started because I wanted to be a race mechanic. That was my dream. And then the fact that I've ended up having a long career, it still makes me sort of smile to myself thinking, how did that even happen? You know, how did I even get into the racing business, and let alone carry on racing for this sort of length of time? And I've loved it. You know, I don't want it to stop. And I think that's the reason it's been possible to carry on as long as I have, is that I still have that passion to get in the car and still to race. And I love the driving experience. I love the competition when you're out on the circuit. And yeah, you'll go as long as someone's willing to pay you normally. But I think in reality, even when I stop being a professional, I'll try and carry on racing just for the fun of it, you know, at much lower level, try and sort of get my bum into a couple of seats during the season just to sort of keep going, because I just enjoy being in the racing paddock. I love the atmosphere, what you get at race weekend, and then the competition on the track it's just magic, you know, really, really fun to be out there racing wheel to wheel. Yeah,
we do have a lot of fun, but it's interesting to note the different changes in personality, you know, once you've got the helmet on. You know, we were even talking yesterday, like practice, like, you know, you've done it for several years, and you know, your approach to practice gets a little different the older you get, because you know you're not going to win practice. But then when it's the race, as we saw last year, you can turn it up pretty high. So Parc Fermé, pretty much a Formula One centric website, and obviously Formula Cars is kind of where you began. Do you want to kind of talk about that? Because I think you told me you started working at Jordan as a mechanic in their R&D center, right?
Yeah, I mean, I did karting, but really on a club level. Just me, my dad, and like his little van that he had for work, and we'd go along, and maybe we did 8 to 10 races a year just in the local kart circuits near where my parents lived.
Yeah. What tracks were they?
So we had Blackbush, which is in Surrey, Shannington, which is in Oxfordshire, which is where I live now. And then occasionally we would venture all those miles down to Clay Pigeon, which when you're a kid, it felt like, oh, you're in the van for 3 hours. But in reality,
Le Mans or something,
it was such a big trip. But in reality, it's not that far at all. But we just did it because I wanted to sort of go racing. But it was really, the enjoyable part was not just the race weekend, but I got the evenings at home to sort of pull my car apart and take the engine apart, put it all back together. And most often my dad would then have to retake it apart and put it back together properly. But that side of it was what really interested me. And everything about what I did at school was about trying to be a race mechanic when I left school, and ideally to end up in Formula One as a race mechanic. And I was just really lucky. I had a small job at a Honda dealership when I left school on a little apprenticeship. And then, unfortunately, that dealership went into receivership, which was, at the time, when you're 16 and it's your first job, you're like, oh, blimey, I'm already out of work. I've only just got to work. But it was great because straight away, it was before the internet and anything. So I wrote a load of CVs to every race team that I could even find details for. And, finding the details for a Formula One team was pretty easy. And I got a chance to go up to Jordan Grand Prix in 91. It was their first year in Formula One. But
the beautiful car.
Yeah, the 7-Up.
Yeah.
But they were an established team. Eddie Jordan Racing was already established as a front-running F3000 squad. So, I went up to Silverstone, and as a 17-year-old, I got a job there in inspection. And then over the next 3 years, I moved from inspection into R&D, and it was really good grounding. But on the side of that, because I was doing a bit of karting, still just for fun and just being as competitive as I could be with the budget we had. Yeah. The people at Jordan Grand Prix and all the other teams that were based at Silverstone, Alan Dockard Racing, there was lots of suppliers as well. And I was like, by this stage, I was sort of a cheeky 18, 19-year-old. And I got to know most of the people on the industrial estate that was there. Yeah. And, they're like, well, you should really go and have a go at trying single-seaters. And at the time, the Jim Russell Racing School was running out of Donington Park. And they all put some money in. I had to raise £1,000, which in 92 or 93 was a chunk of money. Yeah. When I was only earning £60 a week or something. So all these people chucked in 20, 30, 50 quid, raised the money, went off to Donington, did the weeks at Jim Russell Racing School, sort of adapted to a single seater really well. And that was like, okay, well, I've obviously got the skill sets to be able to do some racing. So now what happens, and it's all about finding money. So quickly I learned that what you do on the racetrack is only part of it. What you do off the racetrack and, putting deals together, sponsorship, dealing with, contracts and all that sort of stuff is what I need to really learn fast.
So back then you were already thinking absolutely that was a major part that you had to put forth.
I don't know if it was conscious. Yeah. It was like there's no other option. It wasn't because there wasn't going to be any family funding. That wasn't even a question. That wasn't going to happen. So if anything was going to happen, it was what I could generate. Right. And I guess the first deal I structured was one of the designers at Jordan Grand Prix. He was like, "Oh, we should get into Formula Ford or something like that." And I'm okay. Well, I think that's like $60,000 to do Formula Ford. And there's another little championship called Formula First, which were built by Van Diemen. The cars were really good, but really cheap. They had a little Fiesta engine in. Yeah. Quite a strong championship, but it was aimed at people without the sort of funding. So I convinced this designer guy that if he lent me some money, I would return him a profit more than what his bank would give him in terms of savings. So we put a deal together. He lent me £4,000. I said I'd give him 4,500 at the end of the year, which was like 300 quid more than if he just left it in the bank. Yeah. And I bought my Formula First. And the good thing was, because I had all the access to Jordan Grand Prix, and my car lived at Jordan Grand Prix. So when the cars went off racing, I used to wheel my car into the workshop and put it together.
The best prepared Formula First and
It was amazing because if you can imagine, I had fabricators at hand who wanted to help. Lots of people wanted to help. There's repairs on the bodywork. It was only fiberglass, but there was a composite department that could fix my car.
Those dodgy nose cones on those things.
Yeah, I mean they were the big and heavy, but I'm sure mine had a fair bit of carbon in it by the end. And it was like I loved it. My dad would roll up on a Friday afternoon. We'd roll it on a trailer and off we go and do a bit of racing, and that was where the whole single seater started. And I had some good results running our car, dad and lad running a car at a circuit, that got the attention of a couple of teams, and it sort of snowballed from there. You know, I just got lucky with some sponsors, teams helping me out, and just enough momentum to sort of build a bit of a program. And eventually that ended up moving up to Formula Renault after a few years and winning the McLaren Autosport Young Driver Award at the end of 96. And ultimately, that was the turning point. You know, I'm sure if I hadn't have won that award at the end of 96, give it a year or two, I would have been, you know, back, you know, happy, but back working on cars.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up because that's a massive award.
Huge.
And
huge.
It's turned everyone's career, you know, if you don't already have a lot of money. And when, you know, you look now, all the young drivers, they're being groomed at 8 years old and their dads have the funding and everything like that. And that was probably a lot of drivers' only chance at getting further on, right? I mean, how powerful was that?
I mean, to me, it was. I mean, I came second in the Formula Renault Championship, and then you have 6 UK drivers that go forward for the shootout over 2 days at Silverstone. And up until that point, no one from Formula Renault had won. It'd always been a Vauxhall Lotus or a Vauxhall Junior driver that had gone ahead and won. So in my mind, I was like, okay, I think this award is partly sponsored by Vauxhall, so that's okay. You know, I can understand how things work, and it wasn't. It was like completely not that. But in my perception of the award, that's what it was. So I went along and just had 2 great days at Silverstone, did a good job in the Formula 3 car, and obviously made the right impression and did the lap times to sort of back it up.
Do you remember who you were against?
Yeah, there was Dan Weldon, Peter Dunbreck, Darren Malkin, Tim Mullen, and one other I've forgotten at this point. So, but you know, it was a good bunch of drivers, you know, and all of these guys were either they just won the championship or, you know, they were front runners. So, you know, that night I think it was December the 6th, 1996. It's the first Sunday of December is when the awards night is in London. So I went along, and you know, in fact, I think it was the first black tie dinner I'd been to. We had a table. If you're one of the nominees, you have a table. So I got to invite my family and friends. I didn't think I was in to win it, you know. I was like just there for a great evening and to see how amazing this awards evening was going to be. Yeah. But there's an award earlier in the evening that is for the national driver. And generally, the runner-up of the Autosport award picks up the national driver. So Peter Dunbreck picked that up, and I was like, oh, okay. Well, I thought he was going to be the main, you know, challenger for this Autosport award. So yeah, suddenly I got interested in what was going to happen at the end of the night, and it's the last award of the evening, and yeah, you know, that you get announced, and you're given a Formula 1 test by McLaren. You win £50,000, which, you know, is a huge amount to, 96, it was a huge amount of money to go towards a budget, and you get membership to the BRDC. So for a young driver, it's a huge moment. But quite often the winner has to wait a year or so before they get their chance to be McLaren, you know, to get their test with the F1 team.
To do the one test?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But this time, for whatever, you know, the way that the Dario was working for the F1 team, it ended up in March 97. So I finished Formula Renault in 96, and pretty much the first car I drove in 97 was a Grand Prix car. So
and what McLaren was that?
So it must have been, it was the 96 car, so MP4 something. I don't know. I can't remember the name of it. But yeah, a really good day. Like, amazing. You know, even now I can think back to most of what happened that day.
Yeah, the butterflies must have been
the night before was pretty nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
But that got me the relationship with McLaren, with Martin Whitmarsh, and they took me under their wing, and I was there for 6 years as a test driver. In fact, longer than that, for 7-8 years actually.
Through some pretty solid competitive years for McLaren.
Yeah, but they were the ones that got me into Mercedes and DTM, which was really the turning point in terms of going professional. And that was Mercedes. I started doing some Mercedes stuff with the car that one ran at Le Mans in 99. So I did a bit of testing and reserve driver that year. And then DTM in 2000, 2001. And that definitely was the turning point for me going professional. And I've not looked back since, really.
Right. So as soon as you got a roof on your head, it was a lot easier
to make a living.
To make a living rather than having to go hunt the money every year and everything like that.
I think the single-seater dream ended in 98 when I finished Formula Palmer Audi. You know, I finished second to Justin Wilson, who obviously came over to America, had a great career over here.
Yeah.
And so, that sort of dream finished. Do you know what? I didn't start thinking I was ever going to have a sort of a chance of racing anything.
Right.
So everything for me was a bonus.
Yeah.
And the fact that, since 2000, I've been sort of earning a living from racing cars, it's still like, wow, this has been a great 21 years of living a dream, really.
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember you winning the award, and I always thought of you as a single-seater driver who transitioned, but from 2000, that's 20 years of driving cars with roofs on them from DTM cars, and then obviously you moved on to working with ProDrive in the sports car realm, right? Which obviously had some. So you want to talk about that, how that relationship started? Obviously, you were with Mercedes.
Yeah, and Mercedes ended after 2 years. I had a year where I was sort of bouncing around, just trying to scratch for another drive, and then I got picked up by Velox, who were running some cars in the FIA GT Championship.
Yeah.
And they had a relationship with ProDrive that were running the GT1 Ferraris. And so we ended up doing Sebring and Le Mans with them as part of a Velox driver crew. Okay. And then on one race, there was a IMSA race that was in Miami, street racing in Miami, 2003. And Brabham and Magnussen were teammates, but Magnussen had a prior commitment, I think, for some Danish touring car championship or something. Okay. So I got asked if I'd go and join Brabham for Miami. First time I'd done a street race, and David, I have to say,
it's a fun track though, isn't it?
Oh, it was amazing.
I raced there a couple of times.
It was really good.
One of my favourite street circuits ever.
Yeah, I mean, all I remember was the big bump that was sort of coming onto the
Biscayne.
Yeah,
I crashed there, but
okay, right, yeah.
It was the car, it wasn't me. But yeah.
I did see the Corvette went in off the bump, but Brabham, I have to say, has probably been one of the most helpful teammates I've had in terms of giving me a real good grounding.
That's David, of course.
Yeah, David, yeah. A real good grounding of what it is to be a sports car driver and how you help your teammates and how you get the best out of your teammates. And it's not about you anymore, which is very much what single-seater racing is, or touring cars. Anything where it's a single driver in the car, then it's definitely about yourself and what you can get. But as soon as you start sharing a car, it's about how you can give and get the best out of your teammate, and hopefully that's reciprocated, and you can, they get the best out of you as well. So he really gave me a good understanding of sports cars and what was needed. And that relationship with ProDrive developed, and then they ended up becoming Aston Martin Racing in 2005, and I've been there ever since. Since the DBR9 ran for the first time at Donington in 2004, and since then I've been involved with the car, and pretty much every car that's raced I've driven, and it's been amazing to be part of Aston Martin for that length of period.
Yeah, and now you've won 3 Le Mans.
Right? 2 with Brabham, actually, in the DBR9 in the GT1 car, and then more recently with the GTE car in 2017 with Johnny Adam and Daniel Serra. So great privilege to be on the top step at Le Mans. We've won Sebring with the GT1 car. We won Petit Le Mans. Never had success here at Daytona, so that's one thing. We're
going to change that this weekend.
Exactly. That's definitely one thing I really want to get a podium, or even to get a win here would be incredible. But it's been a joy to be part of Aston Martin Racing for this length of time, and now I'm doing more and more work with the road car side as well, as they start developing and producing more. I wouldn't say extreme cars, but things like the Valkyrie, that's top draw. It's definitely something
not too shabby to drive, I would imagine.
It's definitely an amazing car with capabilities that are beyond what we're racing, basically. So that's an impressive program to be involved with. But there's lots of things like the Vantage and even the DBX. It's been fun to drive an SUV around the Neuschleife and just to see what it can do. That's all part and parcel of testing with Aston Martin on the road car side.
So they keep you pretty busy, it seems. From road car to race car and bouncing around, it seems. Even right now, you're still doing a lot of travelling.
Still not a proper job, but it's...
you don't want a proper job.
No, exactly.
Who wants one of those?
It's funny because one of the bits that is strange is obviously Aston Martin Racing is now back into Formula One. That building was Jordan Grand Prix. And so, when did I leave there? 93, I guess 94. So, all these years later, where I used to work is now what Aston Martin Racing will be in Formula One.
Let's hope you didn't leave some dirty socks around.
No, but I did. There was a period when I was running my car there. It was like I used to work quite late in the evenings, prepping my car, or even doing the work I was meant to do, as in paid to do, sort of thing. And because I wanted to keep saving money, my wages to put towards buying stuff for my race car,
Right.
I used to have digs in Sirisham, a village near Silverstone, and it was always like £5 a night or £8 a night if you wanted breakfast or something like that. So there was a period when I used to sort of stay in the factory under my workbench. So I had my sleeping bag and I made like a little mattress, and I used to save my money by staying there so I could buy tyres for or whatever for the race car. And then eventually the night security guard found me. And so I think I had like 8 or 9 weeks like living in the factory, saving money, and I got busted and I think it was because I was snoring. I mean, he hadn't clocked me because of the way the bench was in the workshop, but eventually he clocked me that, you know, there's someone staying here that shouldn't be staying here overnight.
Yeah,
but
not the smell of bacon at 6 a.m.
No, there was definitely none of that. I didn't do any cooking there, so.
But we heard that's a bit of a disaster anyway.
Yeah, I did some cooking this week, and it's not my forte. So, but one of the things at Silverstone was there was a little cafe that used to be on the site of the circuit, and again, like I was always trying to be a bit careful with my money. So, you know, cereal didn't cost much money, but my main meal of the day was always at the cafe, and the women that worked there were like, okay, well, what? Because you'd see the board, and it's like, well, that's too much. They're like, what do you want to spend? So I said what I wanted to spend, and they came up with this dish for me that was in the budget, and that was what I basically lived on pretty much every day. And now, like, my wife's like, what meal do you want? Like, what's your favourite meal? And it's like, it's that thing these girls, it's a jacket potato with beans, cheese, and a fried egg on top. And it's like, that's my comfort food. If ever I'm like, oh yeah, what do you want? It's not like a steak or anything. It's just anything fancy. It's just, I want my Silverstone calf food. That'd be keep me happy.
Well, that's a first for us.
Yeah. So if anyone's out there that wants to get me
I'll whip that up for you after we win the race this weekend. So make it celebratory kind of meal. So, you talked about working with other people with Brabham, kind of prepping you for that. Now, as a Aston Martin official factory driver, you get put in different places with different teams all the time. Yeah. And obviously you came with us last year and you fit like a glove, which is amazing. So how do you prepare to go to a team you are only going to be with for a weekend with drivers you may or may not drive again, and get yourself in there without being too forceful? And because you've got a lot of knowledge in your head, obviously with your history in racing in general, but also about the cars themselves.
It's not too difficult to do, because generally most teams are filled with nice people, good people. You know, they're all there for the right reason. And so, like, as an example, coming here with Heart of Racing, you know, I knew Ian because we raced against each other in, I think, 95 in Formula Renault. And, you know, he's been here a long time in America racing, but, you know, whenever we saw each other in a paddock, quick chat, hello, you know, so you had a connection already with the team. But you do have to sort of feel your way in, because you don't know, you know, the dynamics of the team, who's pulling the strings, who's the boss, what the engineer is like. Does the engineer do things a bit different from, you know, another engineer, which generally they do, you know, they're all sort of as unique as drivers. So you have to sort of feel your way in to see what's going in, give suggestions from the knowledge you've got from doing everything else you've done with all the works teams, but without trying to force it. And quite often it's actually the other way. You know, you learn stuff, because in the works team, the engineers are, you know, they've got all the information and knowledge and experience. But quite often a customer team has got more freedom, and, you know, that they can think out of the box more because of the fact that they're not tied into supply or, you know, component. You can try different dampers, or you can try different brakes or anything. There's lots of stuff that happens in a customer team that quite often doesn't happen in a works team. So, you know, that information is good because it goes both ways. You know, you come away from a race weekend and say, look, they tried this and it was really good. So, you know, maybe have a think about that. So the information is two ways between like the works team and the customer team. But yeah, you know, you got to find out about your teammates, and you know, if you haven't been to a circuit yourself for a long time, you've got to get dialed in yourself. You know, I haven't been at Daytona for a long time, so it's taken.
We usually give you 2 or 3 laps.
So, yeah, I mean, as an example, Atlanta last year, when it's like 10 laps and then straight into the race, it was a little bit of a, you know, the first couple of laps in the race was a bit like wide-eyed and, you know, I need to get my head into this.
Which way's the next turn go?
Exactly. it is, it's part. You got to use your experience, and it's part of being around long enough to sort of have that experience to be able to sort of put it to good use, really. So,
Right.
But the nice thing is, I think all the teams that are customer teams of Aston Martin Racing, been around quite a few of them, and they're all good teams, good people. They're competitive, they're strong, they technically have the capability, and it's just fitting in as seamlessly as you can for the short period that you're with them without disrupting what they're doing. That's the key to it.
Right. So also, obviously, this is the year of the COVID, or the years of the COVID, and the sim racing stuff took over for a while.
Yeah.
And that's another part of what you do on the side, right? Separate from the Aston Martin. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I was lucky when I started doing work with McLaren in '98. Martin Whitmarsh came from an aerospace background, and he was like, "Let's do a sim." So he put a small group of people together to start like a simulation program, and I was test driver at McLaren, and more than happy to get paid to sit in a dark room and drive.
Play video games.
Yeah. But it wasn't. Those early days, I'd say the first year or so were really frustrating for the technical people involved. Because it hadn't really been done before. They'd had offline simulation where the computer's just running through the numbers and it gives you, here's some figures. Yeah. But they didn't have any driver in the loop simulators. So this first sim was in a really small room, not much bigger than what we're in now as a motorhome. Single-seater chassis, an old F1 chassis, and it was on a longitudinal motion platform, and it had probably a 3 meter wide screen, 2 projectors. The steering was quite quick to get on top of in terms of the feel, but the motion was not what you needed, so that was a learning point straight off. It was to begin with, they thought this was what we needed, longitudinal, but actually that's not what you need for so much for a single seater motion platform. But it's understanding the tyre models, the circuit models, the car model, all this. That's what took the time. There'd be days when I'd go in and I'd do 2 laps in a day, no more than that, because you drive out the pits and the thing flips on its back and it's, they don't understand what went wrong with the numbers. And it's like, okay, so you start again. Now you look at it, the level that we do with my little company, it's like so far away that 20 odd years of development, which has trickled down from Formula One, and what we're able to achieve now was like year 3 or 4 of what was being done back then. So the progress is really helped come down the sport, and and now the home sims are so good. What people have got set up at home for driver development, circuit familiarization, improving your driving skills, and for fun with esports, etc. But back then the sole purpose of the sim was to not really develop the drivers; it was to develop the car, to be used as an engineering tool. So I think it was probably 4 years before we got to the stage where the design office at McLaren were confident of the numbers that were coming out of the sim, that those numbers would be usable to help develop and push the car in a different direction. Yeah. So that was a long process. And, I went from 98 to 2006 with McLaren. I had a short period at Red Bull with their sim when they started coming across. As Adrian knew, he moved across from McLaren to Red Bull. Then moved to Toyota to help them with theirs in Cologne. And then I did a long stint with Toyota over here with the NASCAR program, because
really,
they've got the sims, and at the time they sort of had drivers who knew NASCAR, but none of them knew anything about sims. So they educated me in driving a NASCAR, and then I could help with the sim. So
did you ever get into one for real?
Yeah, I had I think 7 or 8 tests with between Michael Waltrip team and Joe Gibbs Racing. So. Okay. And that was a great experience.
Oval or road course or both?
Did everything. Yeah, that was the whole point. It's like, okay, so you did VAR in one. I did a quarter mile in Miami somewhere. Oh, yeah. I went to a mile oval. They gave me a good selection of circuits to just build up a bit of a picture of what a NASCAR felt like. Yeah. So then I could help with the sim. And then more recently, I've been back in F1 helping a team with their new platform as well. So, that's really good, because I get to do like the real high end stuff where they're spending obviously millions on their simulation programs. Yeah. And then my little company is the other end. We're just there as a driver development simulation. So I've got 2 sims. One's a single seater, one's a GT sim, and then we sell them as well. So we do a fair few installations.
Nice. Yeah,
so.
it's a major part of motorsports now.
It is
and
now.
it's not going away, is it?
No,
Obviously.
not at all. Not at all.
It's just going to get bigger.
And during the COVID lockdown, the esports for drivers was immense. I ended up doing this Legends Trophy thing, which had quite a few good
Alonso
drivers
and all those boys.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I mean, Mario Andretti was in one of the races. Emerson Fittipaldi was in there few, and there's some huge names from motorsport that were in that championship, and there's a couple of us sort of got on the back of that, and it was great fun. And now, because I have like quite a few customers who've bought my little sims for home, and quite a few of them are professional drivers. So on Wednesday nights, not every week, but quite regularly, we have a race night. It's not serious. In fact, it's more about who's had a beer or two before they start. We announce the circuit at 6 p.m. They get a couple of hours practice, and then qualifying, and then race. And we carry on racing until people get bored. So we definitely have 2 races, but sometimes they're four races, and it could be anything. From a MX5 round at Alton Park to we've done Indy cars, we've done NASCAR. We just chop and change to make it a bit interesting.
Yeah. So circling back. As we said, we're at Daytona. It's, I don't know, just a couple of hours before the start of the race. What are your thoughts on going into the race? We've been a bit up and down on how the car was. It seemed like our last session, it seemed to be bringing it all back into play. What's your predictions, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, the car has got better as the test has gone on from the raw to here as well. Certainly the car always performs better when the track starts rubbering up in the race. So I think as the race goes on, we're going to get just a little bit closer to the competition in terms of pace, outright pace. It's really strong out there. That's the thing. It's a strong field of cars and teams and drivers. So definitely, as most people say with Daytona, it's a race for 20 hours, but then it's a sprint for the last 4.
Right.
So we need to be, in there in the game for the first 20. Don't get too far down. Don't get a lap down, or if we are, try and get back on with the wave rounds. And just to make sure that we're in with a chance in the last 4 hours, and then the big push really. So there's so much can happen that's out of your control. Yeah. As you've seen with the cold temperatures, it's really easy to go off on the outlap. People are struggling to get the car up to temperature. So yeah, it's just stay out of trouble, have a good pace for the first part of the race, and then see what happens. But the race starts at 3:40, so after 2-3 stints, we're into the night, and right. First time for quite a few of us first stint will be straight into the dark. So right. That's probably going to be the most difficult thing. It's like if quite often you like to get at least one stint under your belt in the day, but that's not going to be part of the plan. No.
So what's your cycle on how you prepare? Because obviously you've got to get in the car, then you're out of the car for a few hours and get yourself up for it again. What's your system, so to speak, for these kind of races?
So normally you need to be like an hour before your actual scheduled stint in the pits ready in case the other driver's got an issue and they want to swap them out. So you're on call from that point. But as soon as I'm done my stint, I'll leave the pit lane, and then I'll probably come back here, grab a bit of food, completely chill out.
And you're able to sleep and
I try to get as much sleep as I can.
You can't. Obviously, you've been doing it so long, you probably make yourself do that.
Yeah. I mean, again, going back to what David Bradman sort of taught me was there's nothing I can do wasting my energy sat in the pit lane watching the timing screens that's going to make any difference to what the guy who's in the car is doing.
Right.
So why waste your energy in that area when you can come away relaxed, recoup, and then you've got the power again when you get back in? Yeah. It's hard though, because you want to watch the race, you want to see how your teammates doing, you want to look at the lap times, you want all that information, but you're just tiring yourself out for no reason. So, I probably did a couple of 24 hours before I sort of got into that sort of groove for a race weekend. So yeah, literally now jump out the car, 5-minute chat with the engineer if he's got time, because he's not stopping. Yeah, right. And then get myself away and just get some downtime. All
right. Well, let's hope it's a good one. We're all pulling together on this one. It's a great team. It's been great having you on the team, and I know you're a major asset to the team. We've got 4 super strong drivers, so let's just hope for the best. So that's about it from me. Hope you enjoyed the little chat or long chat with Darren. So thanks for doing that for me, mate. And we'll talk to you next time, hopefully after a victory. Cheers.
It's not what I feel I've got to prove at all. I don't really want to prove anything. I started as an amateur with no idea or no intention of becoming world champion. I was curious to find out what it was like to drive a car fast, to drive on a certain circuit, to drive a certain type of car.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.